So hello and welcome guys. Today we've had a delivery from Element Games in Stockport in the UK. Over the last week or so I put it out to the local community with my gaming about what potential paints people were using and good ideas to try and improve your painting and kind of hobby and skill. A lot of people have different opinions on when it comes to paints and different brands and different types and ultimately different methods in what they use. Personally, for many years now, I've always tended to use Citadel brand paints, and then I've recently kind of gone into a bit of Vallejo. But I tend to stick with Citadel because it's what I'm used to. The paint pots for Citadel aren't fantastic, as a lot of people are aware. You do have a lot of wastage, I find, when it comes to the pots. And even if it's left open a crack or there's not a proper seal around the paint, they do dry out quite easily. So the dropper bottles are naturally a better kind of container unit for paint, in my opinion. But Citadel have yet to adopt this. So what I've looked into is essentially the Scale 75 painting collection, which is a company based out of Madrid in Spain, who are very well renowned over the last 10 years or so to start developing acrylic paints for wargamers and obviously at elite level. I've heard mixed opinions on what their paints are like, but the majority of opinions seem to be that they are very good for what they do, particularly in such stuff like the metallic range and the intensity range, which I'll talk about in a moment. It was a bit of a stop-start on what I should have bought to begin with, because when I heard about these sorts of paints, I immediately thought, well, metallics are what I'm tending to paint a lot of at the moment, so therefore maybe the metallic range is a good place to start. But then you looked at what the paint kits are available and you think, right, okay, if I go for gold, then I'm going to want a silver. Then if I want the silver, I'm probably going to use copper and all the rest of it in time. So I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go all out and buy the lot because it gives me the best amount of value for money when I thought about it, and it gives me a wider amount of paints to kind of play with, which ultimately is the best thing for any avid wargamer and painter, is that they've got lots of flexibility in their paint range and a lot of variation. So I bought the whole kit, which is something I haven't found anywhere else other than Element Games, which includes their bigger bulk units such as the Scale Colour, the Fantasy Games collection, and then the Alchemy Set and the Intensity Set. I'll go through each one as we go through and do the unboxing. So just for an idea of what to start with, I went for the Scale Colour collection, which is 63 colours. These are very matte in what I've kind of watched online from other wargamers and painters and stuff like that. The reason being is because they have high pigmentation in the actual bottles themselves, more so than most. But I think that's a good thing in itself, because I'm forever tending to, essentially use mediums a lot to try and thin down paints and stuff like that and try and give more pigmentation for spreading across miniatures, but having it a bit more in the bottle itself would save a bit of time when it comes to it and be a bit more vibrant when it comes to coverage. But again, it's going to be a learning curve, and I've been told that these can be more like gel based as opposed to like acrylic based, but that's all going to be a case of learning as we go along. So in this case, you've got 63 colours. They're essentially all of your basic kind of colour wheel colours and a few variations from that. On the back, you've got what types of colours, what types of things you've got going on there. So you've got quite a handful of greens, a handful of browns, blues, basically everything you need to get started, which is always a good place. So I thought, well, that's a good place to try and begin, is get the Scale Colour collection for that. Again, more matte based, and some of the others are a bit different, so I'll go through that in a moment. Within the box itself, it weighs a ton, and that's because it comes with a aluminium tray to actually support the paints with, and it is pretty cool. because trays themselves are quite expensive, especially if you get the MDF. You can get cheap MDF ones, but for metal ones, yeah, it's not so cheap. So within the box itself, very well neatly stacked, which is helpful when it comes to not having to individually unwrap every one of them. And the colours are all segmented in here. And the amazing thing is you've actually got another rack that isn't full. I'll take it out of the box so you can have a look. So that means that you've got room to expand. So if there's any other paints that you'd like to kind of pop in there, then essentially that's something you can do. And as you can see, very nicely arranged. Shake them around, they're not going to move, which is fantastic news. The only thing that I'd say just from opening this first time is that it doesn't actually have screws on the back, so I was going to mount this on the wall if it stood quite nicely. So I might have to pre-drill them, but I mean it is only aluminium, so it shouldn't be too bad. But that's first time looking at the box, looks very nice for what it is. Plenty of paints, I'm quite happy with that. One positive with these bottles as well, essentially that's 17mm there in the bottle. If we go for a Citadel paint, that's 12mm, so you're getting an additional 5mm in each bottle, which by the sounds of it is probably about another 20% extra, so they should go a bit longer, especially with the fact that they're quite heavily pigmented. The next problem is finding space for this. The next box is the Fantasy Games collection. So these are similar to kind of your basic paints, but they're more silk finish as opposed to matte. So when I've come to like painting buildings and stuff like that, the matte finish tends to rub off and stuff like that over time, where this one I would say is probably more wargamer based, because it's not going to rub over time if you were to play quite often, which I do a lot at tournaments. So I thought that was a good one to try and pick up, but I thought I'd buy the other one just to try and influence that and your paint kind of palette. These are a little bit more vibrant, as you can see on there. You have different features, so you've got like your chaos kind of demons, unnatural flesh, so that'd be your undead kind of models, orcs and goblins, so lots of vibrant greens, elven colours, which is very cool because I'm going to do that for my Rivendell, lots of nice blues and purples which look quite sexy. Steampunk, which seems like it's a bit more orange and brown, which again very cool if you were to go down the leather route. And Shades of Doom, which seems a bit insidious, but it looks like that's kind of more, I don't know, robotish, I guess. It's got necro grey and stuff, so I assume it's kind of based around some 40k kind of aspects. So that's quite interesting. It's less than you'd expect. It's 48 colours opposed to the 64 in the other collection. And one thing I've yet to mention, just because this popped out the other box, is that you're actually getting booklets with these as well, which is telling you how to paint certain things, so non-metallic metal. They do have this online for free as well, I looked earlier. Flesh paints, step-by-step guides are great, especially if you're just learning. So that's the one with the scale colour, blood and red paint, ice blue armour, black and white, and then different scale colours that might add in. So that's a nice little booklet with the first one. I'm assuming you probably have booklets in the others. So smaller box, same process. It's well neatly packed. Another little booklet, we'll go for that in a second. And another aluminium tray. This one's smaller. Unfortunately it doesn't have any spare space, which is not always the best. But the other one did, so that's always nice to know. And as you can see, they're a lot more vibrant in their nature. A little bit of an idea of what they look like. But that looks, again, quite sexy. Once it's up on the wall, I think that'll look cool. But that's robust, that's not going anywhere. There's no pre-drilled holes on the bottom again, unfortunately, but that's not to worry. And then in your scale 75 booklet for the Fantasy Games collection. This one I haven't seen so far. yeah, lots of different things with different fantasy miniatures and natural flesh combinations, which come in handy with orcs. There's your orcs and goblins. Elven colours, again, vibrant blues, purples, different types of leather kind of painting options, different greys, and again, what comes in each individual aspect here. From what I'm aware of, I believe you can buy these independently. So if you just wanted to go, right, I'm going to paint an army of elves, you can go for the Elven Colour range, which is similar to what we have with the metallic and stuff like that. They're segmented into 8 paints, so that's one component. But you've got to remember that each one of these is going to cost you probably about between £25 and £30. So it will soon mount up. So if you wanted to do like a bulk buy like I did, which I'll break down at the end, it would save you money, which who doesn't want to save money at the end of the day? Right, and then we move on to the Alchemy Sets. These are all going to be the same. So essentially what it is 8 individual paints. They didn't have an alchemy set that was kind of a big one with an aluminium tray, so you just got these 3 sets for that. So as you can see, you're starting with super dark gold, building it up in different flavours, and then going all the way up into things like giving it a bit of a tinge, so a bit of a pink, a bit of a purple. And that's really cool, because I hate painting gold. I know a lot of people hate painting gold. And I think having different variations of it are going to make some armies look really cool. So I've got some ideas that I'm going to do next, which will be with my Easterling army, which hopefully will make them pop on the battlefield, which would be nice to see. Within the box itself, again, similar, all lined up. But they're going to have to stay in packets, I think. Well, I'll put them up in the rack eventually. And then you have the breakdown with the little card. This isn't as ambiguous as the last one, but it gives you some ideas with gold armour, different variants, apparently a fish, which again might come handy with certain things, with scales and stuff like that, and different things that they sell, like thinners and stuff like that if you need to from them. And then same sort of principle with the bronze. The bronze got a little bit more ambiguous colours, so you've got ruby, pure copper. Again, I don't use bronze hugely, but I think that's mainly because I was a bit worried about the type of scope I had with the Citadel ones, and I've not been too impressed with those. I use tons of silver, however, so that's going to come in handy. And again, you've got your variants starting with super dark, working their way through until you've got your cobalt, which is a bit of a blue tinge, which is quite nice for kind of your elf weapons that would say glow in the dark, essentially, and your emerald armour. So if you really wanted to do something like your your Renly Baratheons and your Loras Tyrells and stuff, that might be cool. And then a purple tinge as well. So again, something different I've not seen. And then another box that you've got here is your Intensity set, which I've not got my head around yet. It seems like it's a bit more of a very specialist niche at the moment with this company alone. What you do with this, like most shades and inks and stuff like that, you put it on after you've applied the paint. However, this kind of boosts the actual pigmentation in the colours of what you're using if you use the Scale 75 stuff. So it will kind of put in like an edge highlight or something like that as you put it on, so you can get some really cool effects going on, which to me is going to be a case of learning as I go. So if I've got any ideas of how you've used this, then please leave it in the comments and I'll have a go with it. You've got basically your basic colours, so your intense black, you've got brown, you've got chestnut, you've got purple, so violet, blue, green, red, yellow. So again, you'll get through those quite quickly, I assume, if you're using them regularly. But that's quite cool, and I assume once I've opened it, it's probably got a little booklet in there as well. So those are what I've bought so far. I did a bit of a breakdown just so you guys know how much these kind of things cost. So typically a normal bottle of paint, I mean, I'm buying from Games Workshop, it's £2.75 a pot, which given that you're getting 5ml less than one of these, it's quite expensive for what it is. And I smash through loads. I do loads and loads of painting. It's one of my main hobbies, so especially with lockdown and things, I'm just smashing through the armies, and that's good for me. I'm just trying to promote and build up my kind of commissioning and how many painting armies I'm doing. But I'm enjoying it, which is the main thing. Now, typically these will cost about the same as the Games Workshop ones. They're about £2.75 to about £3. I think if you were to go to some of the specialist retailers, it might be slightly cheaper on the side of more closer to £2 as opposed to £3. But it's quite expensive if you were to go out and buy all these paints. So with how many paints are bought, because I thought, well, you're going to need kind of the basic colours to begin with. Then you want to have a play around with these alchemy sets and stuff. It does soon mount up. So an alchemy set or an intensity set, if you were to buy them from somewhere like Element Games, Dark Sphere, whatever, you're probably going to pay about between £20 and £25. If you were to go somewhere not offering such a discount, you'd be paying around £30. And £30 for eight paints, I mean, it is not dramatic. You're looking at around £3 a bottle. So with the amount of paints that you've got in these two main big sets and the alchemy sets and the intensity set, we're around 144 paints, I believe. So typically it's a lot, and you're thinking about how many kind of things that you can do with this. I think all of the paints all in would cost you around £430 to buy brand new, and that's without the aluminium trays and those things, which again, who doesn't want? So the whole bulk buy kit ended up saving me £120, and that's without the actual kind of metal paint holders. So that's quite a saving. So I would recommend people to go out and try these different things. I'll give some ideas on how these things work, and I'll start painting with them from now on. It's going to be quite exciting. But yeah, generally it's something that I think everybody should do, is chop and change in between things until they learn and understand what they enjoy and how they like to do things. So I'd like to hear from you guys. Obviously, let me know if there's any particular pearls of wisdom people have told me about with these things. I know one thing that should be mentioned is that each one of these paints usually have like a bit of foil at the top, so you have to pre-pick them with like a thumbtack or a paper clip or something like that, so it then obviously lets them out. And I've been told that you need to shake them a lot because of the pigmentation and it separating to the bottom of the bottle and stuff. So anything else, generally just let me know, and I'm sure I'll pick it up as I go along, learning as I do. But that's an unboxing for you guys. Again, a large amount of paints, a lot of things that I'd like to try them on, and obviously I'll post up on the Facebook page about obviously what armies I'm doing and how things are turning out. All the best now. Bye bye.